Good day, my friends. How you folks doing today? And welcome to episode 19 of Moral's Podcast. I'm your host, Moral Truth. Last time, we talked about some mental health awareness. We talked about some New Year's stuff going on. Talked about some YouTube and Twitch stuff. But this time, for today, we're going to be talking about some tech and philosophy with a bit of comedy on the side here and there. So before we get into that, let's introduce our guest for today. We have Trace Thompson from the Opinion Overload podcast. Can you say hi?
What's up, everybody? I'm one of the hosts of the Opinion Overload podcast. Unfortunately, my co-host Sam couldn't make it here today. In short, Opinion Overload is just a plethora of topics. We kind of cover stuff that's obscure, and we break it down so it's easy to understand.
Okay, cool. And what kind of obscure stuff do you folks talk about on the podcast?
We started off with stuff like, I'm just going to pull up from my episode list here. Old anthropology, like ancient anthropology. Something from that was how humans evolved to be weaker than they did in ancient times because we became more akin to technology than, hitting things with rocks.
Rocks, man. That's how it all started with, right? With rocks.
Rocks are the best tool. You can hit anything with it.
Indeed. Yeah, that's some pretty cool stuff that you guys talk about. Yeah, we'll be sure to talk about a bit more about plugging your stuff out later on. But
yep,
for sure. Anything you want to say before we get into the first topic?
We spent a good amount of time going over these topics, and I'm really interested to get into the philosophy of technology as well as transhumanism, because they look like they're going to be right on the horizon in the next 50 to 100 years, and it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating how technology over the years have expanded, and it's still expanding today. Almost everything these days could be done with technology. Even this podcast, that's through the power of technology. Talking to other people from around the world.
It's really interesting to me because it was almost like you had this towards the end of the 1800s, this birth of what is essentially modern technology. And from the late 1800s, early 1900s to today, it's just exploded. And there's been so much advancement in the past 100, 200 years that we'd never had over the however many thousands of years we've existed before that.
Yeah, it's just in the past, in those previous eras, completely different. Life without technology, it's pretty fascinating.
There's speculation, though, that there's something called the Kali Yuga cycle. It's not like mainstream science or anything. It's a old religious concept that human civilization exists in 20,000 year cycles, and there's 4 of them. So essentially, it's the birth and it leads all the way to the downfall. And people have started to present the idea because of how we're starting to find older and older civilizations that the level of technology we have today had been achieved previously, and then we're just rebuilding back up to it.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the expansion of technology. It didn't just do it just overnight. It just happened.
I wonder, though, especially, have you ever heard of the concept of the Great Filter?
No, I have not.
So there's an idea that's been presented in philosophy that the reason we haven't come across any other alien civilizations that we know of yet is because there's a level where the technology you create either kills you or you surpass any of the limits that you had previously as a species. And much of the scientists who collaborate on it believe that a lot of civilizations that get to that point end up destroying themselves. And there's only a handful of civilizations that exceed that.
Yeah, kind of similar to with money or anything like that. It can either make you or break you. That's the same thing with technology. It depends how you use it. You can use it for good. You can use it for evil.
What do you think? Because you talked about Philip Kant, or Kerr, I believe, yesterday, about the original. He coined the term philosophy of technology. Did you read into him at all?
I think. Oh wait, let me see what his name was. Ernst Cap. Oh yeah. We talked about a little bit about that before doing this. Yeah, he was the guy who coined the term philosophy of technology. And let me see, in this piece, I don't know how you pronounce it, Eine. Is it pronounced Ian?
Ein.
Ein Philosophie der Technik, just
Oh,
in 1877.
Ein Philosophie der Technik.
Yeah, that's is that like Greek?
It's German.
Oh, German. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
I wasn't really I never had been exposed to him before, and I haven't really read much of his stuff yet because it was a short time though since you brought him up yesterday. But I do have a dictionary of philosophy here that I could pull up and see if he's in it. That would take me a second to get, but I could. It's right across the room here.
No, that's fine. Feel free, because I haven't read much about him either.
All right, I'll be back. So vamp for a second.
All right, for sure.
Okay, I'm back with the dictionary. What was his name again?
Ernst Cap. Ernst, and then Cap. Yeah, German philosopher.
Okay. It's a pretty thick book, so it's gonna take me a second. We talk about transhumanism as almost like a tool for humanity. And you think about how it's going to change people on a fundamental level.
I'm sorry. Are we really shifting topics? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just covering while I'm.
Sure.
While I'm getting to this part of the book. You
Yeah,
talked about Black Mirror yesterday.
Oh yeah, I love that show. Yeah.
What specifically do you like about it?
The reason what I like about Black Mirror is like first, like each episode is like completely different. It's like technology being involved in like different things, like whether is like using an app like to see where your child is all the time or what your child is seeing, or like an app where you can rate people based on if they're like nice or they're being, bad people, like being disrespectful. And then there's like app like or something with technology where I guess you have your own bee colony, I guess, and then that's being used by the government to watch everybody.
One of my favorite episodes from season 4 was Metalhead. Did you watch that one?
No, I didn't watch that one.
It was the one with the robot dog.
Oh no, I didn't watch that one.
Okay, that one was fascinating to me because it was a horror movie about a robot dog. And when you think about it, I'm going through this dictionary, and I don't see him in here. I think because he's outside of classical philosophy, he's not going to be included. But this one robot, which if you look at Boston Dynamics, they've developed something incredibly similar to it. There was a video posted on the internet a few days ago where they had gotten one of these robots to open a door, hold it so that two other robots of the same pattern could walk through and then close the door behind it. That humans had essentially been eliminated by all these little drones that were autonomous to the point that their prerogative was just eliminate people, and that you couldn't really kill them. It took almost all the characters' resources in that episode to kill one of them, and it's revealed at the end of the episode that there's thousands of them. That was a pretty terrifying look at what artificial intelligence could become.
So it's becoming more of like a robot dog army that takes over the human race in a way.
That's actually not too. It's the essentially plot of the show or that episode, but it's not too far off because if you get an advanced enough military, you're eventually going to start implementing things like drones. And drones will lead to, as we have it today, aerial drones. But then you will eventually get something like a land-based drone, like the robot dog in Metalhead, or there's a military program that uses repurposed ATVs that they give autonomous programming to, and they can operate themselves. And they use them to detonate bombs for IED squads. And they could be incredibly dangerous because it's a lot harder to kill a robot than it is to kill a human.
Indeed. Yeah, going back to that episode I was mentioning about, I think I was trying to figure out, but I think season 3, I believe. I think it's called the Nation of Hate. I don't remember what the name of the episode was. Let me go look that up real quick.
I don't remember all of season 3, but
Hated in the Nation. Yeah, that's the name. It's season 3, episode 6.
Recap the episode for me.
Basically, it starts out with seems like some lady that works with I don't know if she's like a cop or something, but she works something around maybe like with the FBI or something like that. I don't know. She's sitting down in front of several people trying to explain. I don't know. She goes through a flashback. We're talking about what happened with trying to figure out what's causing people to be dying. Yeah, it takes place in London, basically in London in the UK, and eventually she finds out that there's people dying because there's somebody hacking through like the bees. It's like I guess like it's like robo bees or something like that that the government uses to pretty much watch over everybody in the UK, like to make sure like to try and make sure there's no crimes going on in the UK. And I think just somebody like was able to like hack through one of the bees and then just straight out kill somebody by going like the little, it's like really small robot bee. Basically it goes through, I guess it goes through the nostrils of the person, the nasal, or goes through the ear. I don't know how it gets through. I think through the nose, and then just straight out kills them. They just go into the brain. And the way they find that out, like how the bees are killing these people, is basically like on social media they use a hashtag called death2, where basically like the people, like let's say like Twitter for example, there's like, oh, death to whoever person you hate.
I don't recall that episode of the show, but what I do remember,
Yeah, but basically it was like a hashtag.
Finished
Yeah.
that episode
Yeah.
was. Did you watch Crocodile for season 4?
No, I didn't watch that one. But yeah, basically whoever gets tagged the most with that death2 hashtag dies. And later on, yeah, they try to figure out the guy who's hacking through that system with the bees, and eventually the plot twist, instead the guy that controls the bees originally, I mean, he doesn't know who's hacking through the system, and turns out they're trying to shut it down to make sure the hacker, doesn't try to hack through the bees. And then later on, the bees end up killing everybody who used the hashtag in the first place. It's like some sort of game or something that the hacker invented.
That's pretty interesting. It's like almost like a Robin Hood system of justice.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, in the end, it was like mass killing, basically.
The lot of Black Mirror it's scary because it's almost right around the corner. And that's really concerning to people, especially when you get things like nanobot bees that kill people, or, robot dogs that can hunt people, or super immersive VR that you can't discern it from reality. I mean, that's the problem with technology that's going to be coming up in the next few hundred years is, what Ready Player One is?
I think so, but I don't remember exactly what it was. I think I heard of it before.
The Ernst Klein book where there's a virtual reality that's so much better than actual life that no one comes out of the game, and essentially the planet just becomes a huge slum and everyone's in the VR game.
Oh, that actually reminds me of the next episode after that, about the USS Callister, where the guy just puts himself in the world of like Star Trek.
Space Fleet.
Yeah, in the Space Fleet. Yeah, that.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to bring up. I just didn't know if you'd seen that episode.
Yeah, I saw that one.
It was stuff like that's going to happen. It's already on the beginning edge of it. And once you develop that technology to be so almost perfect, once you get it to where the human brain can't discern between that and reality, you're going to have problems, because people will get addicted to that just like they get addicted to things like cocaine or meth, and they won't leave, and people will die because they won't leave the game. I mean, if you ever look at like there's a opioid crisis in America. If you think about that, it's people using escapism. If you think about video games are also a form of escapism, if you get a perfect video game where you can have anything you want at any time, that could be dangerous.
Yeah, I can agree in a way, because depends, like, what game you play. Like some games, like you can only do so much, and then there's games like you could get pretty much anything you want. Like I mean, there's like mods that you can use in games to get what you want these days.
Well, anytime you give someone like a virtual reality game wouldn't put limits on its characters, because anytime you do that, then you break the realism. So if you have a virtual reality game that's set in whatever, like 500 years in the future, and after you do that, you can't tell people they can't do certain things, because if they do, like say you want to go extravehicular activity, go outside of a spaceship, and the game blocks you from doing that, that breaks the realism, and that means that the game isn't perfect. So you'd have to let people do that, and then you'd have to give them ways to do that. And if you're going to do that, and you give them something that creates and can replicate sensory stimulus, you'd have to give them all kinds of platforms to enjoy that game.
Yeah, then with games sometimes there will be bugs, and then and they have to like fix the bugs. The developers have to go through the bugs, try to like fix that. Takes a while of that process to, because I know it's not gonna be like a perfect game, because eventually there'll be bugs that players might discover, and some bugs may be exploited.
Mm-hmm. It's really the beginning of transhumanism in the real world, because what have you watched Altered Carbon at all on Netflix?
Oh, speaking of that, actually, like I was talking to somebody, like I went live on Instagram, like I guess like a few days ago, like prior to this recording, and then I was telling him, oh, I was watching Black Mirror, and he's like, oh, you know what? I recommend Altered Carbon. I'm like, oh, really? Is it like? And then yeah, that's the only time I've heard about it.
I liked it. It's really it's more of a thriller than anything else, but it does go into certain topics like transhumanism. The main part of that show, or just the core of it, is that human consciousness gets put into what's called a sleeve or a stack, and if you die, they can pull that out and put it in a different body, and you're essentially alive again. That's something that I don't think is too far away, like practical immortality. I don't think it's too far away, and there's a lot of things in um, have you ever heard of Ray Kurzweil?
No, I have not. Is that another one on Netflix?
It's not. It's just a researcher. He's a
Oh,
scientist.
oh, okay,
Um,
all right. I never heard of him.
he's a futurologist, and he makes all these bold predictions about how fast it'll be before we get to artificial intelligence, or how long it'll be before we get um, interstellar travel and all that stuff. He thinks, and he's made some claims. I mean, you can't really go after what he's saying because he's very aggressive about it. You can't take it too literally. You just have to take the concepts kind of as they are. Is that he thinks that artificial intelligence will eventually replace humans, not even 1,000 years into their life cycle after they've been activated. Um, the ability of an AI to learn is so vast that within 2 years of being activated, it could have created 10,000 years of technological advancements. So you're dealing with something that if you're going to do it, you have to put a leash on it. Otherwise, it'll outpace humans to the point that we become obsolete.
Yeah, like that Robo Dog.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, that's a good transition to from our previous topic to go into transhumanism. Let's actually get into that.
I think that eventually humans are going to integrate themselves into machines, and it could be biological. Just because a machine is classed as that, it doesn't have to be metal or plastic or anything. It could be flesh and blood. It just wouldn't be the same as we think it is. You would most likely see people getting replaced organs at first. Things like, oh, the blind can see because now they have digital eyes, or you can replace limbs from people who have had amputations, stuff like that. And
Right,
these
right, like
limbs,
prosthetic legs,
yeah,
kind of like that.
and these limbs would be far better than the natural human equivalent. I mean, you would most likely be able to get legs that could, squat 10,000 pounds or whatever, something ridiculous like that. Or you could get eyes that could see 2 miles away. And it would essentially get so deep in a society that people just start replacing their whole bodies with that stuff. And
Yeah, I can
this
imagine that. Yeah, like you start with
eventually,
one part, then eventually you'll be transformed to, an actual robot.
eventually, I think it would outclass people, though. Like, you either have, in the beginning of that, you see probably a divide in civilization, where the ultra rich can have any of those upgrades that they want, and the middle class, whatever, will have essentially none of that. And it could create a cultural divide, or a divide in society that creates almost demigods out of people. And then everyone else is just left to fend for themselves with almost nothing. Because once you get, this has been covered in a lot of science fiction works, once someone gets artificial or any form of immortality, the wealth that they can accumulate goes up incredibly. Blade Runner, that was an issue. A lot of the powerful groups in that series had just lived for so long that they had accumulated almost inexhaustible wealth.
I've heard of Blade Runner. I never saw that one, but I can imagine that divide.
What were you saying?
I was saying that I didn't watch Blade Runner, but I heard some good stuff about it. But yeah, like you were saying, like the divide between the richer people actually having more access to, have more parts that, to transition to a machine, and then it'll get to the point where like they'll be the fittest to survive. It'll be like natural selection in their favor, and then
At that point, it's artificial selection. Since we started getting agriculture into human societies, we never really had natural selection because we're not really threatened by things as we used to be. So essentially, we grew past evolution taking the best traits of humanity, and we kind of let all the traits still exist. So it is artificial selection, and what creates that is wealth.
yeah, pretty much everything these days, involves wealth. Because like if you don't have wealth, you can't really get anything.
Yeah. I wouldn't be too surprised if, as a result of things like transhumanism, that religions exist based around technology.
Why would you say that?
Well, if you think about it, if you have the potential for immortality, or you have the potential to do whatever you want through technology, it would almost present itself like a deity. And as such, you could get cults or religions based around technology.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I covered that I recorded my episodes for this week this morning, and I covered that in a short segment I did of the second episode. That was a part of it.
Oh, okay, all right, for sure. I'll link that in the show notes for anybody that wants to hear that episode of the Opinion Overload podcast. I'll leave that in the show notes if you can link it to me later on.
Yeah, that episode releases Thursday, so I don't know when you're releasing this podcast, but it should be up
I'll probably be released after you release your thing. So right, I'll be in the description anyways. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Let's transition into our final topic.
Yeah, for sure. And our last topic, we'll talk about inventions. Specifically, what inventions do we feel need to exist or need to be invented this year? It's a little fun topic instead of our serious topics earlier on.
I would really like to see VR technology go up a lot this year.
Yeah, I would like to see that too, because before, with VR, you have to have those little those goggles thing. I don't know what those are called.
Yeah, just VR goggles. I mean, that's
yeah, VR goggles. Yeah, and then some of my friends are actually getting into VR games, and it's cool to see how how the gameplay with that is completely different compared to if you're just playing with a mouse and keyboard, or if you're playing with with a controller, with a an Xbox controller or whatever. And yeah, and it could expand to the point where you don't really need the goggles or something. Maybe something more complex.
There's a company in Texas that recently bought a warehouse, and what they're doing is they're converting the entire warehouse to be VR compatible, so that you can play games just walking around the warehouse with a backpack and VR goggles on. And they've mapped it out so that if you're going upstairs, it's a 1-to-1, or if you're going down a hallway, it's 1-to-1. It's actually really interesting.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool. You go into VR, you get into your job or something, but in reality you're just sitting down.
Yeah. I really want to see, because it's starting to become so much more mainstream, cryptocurrency get more accessible.
Oh, you mean with Bitcoin?
I mean, any cryptocurrency in general. Bitcoin is It's like the house brand. It's like Kleenex. But Bitcoin, Ripple, Ethereum, Litecoin, all that stuff just becomes more accessible to allow for more trading of cryptocurrency and maybe establish it as some type of backup currency for certain countries or systems.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know there was like multiple cryptocurrencies besides
Oh,
Bitcoin. I didn't even know
there's hundreds. Some of them are jokes though. Like there's Dogecoin.
that.
4chan has a cryptocurrency. It's all pretty. It's a wasteland right now.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I never been to 4chan, but I just know
Don't
stuff
go.
happens there. Yeah,
Just don't go. Stay away.
I'll save myself.
Yeah. What are some things that you're looking forward to this year?
That's a good question. I think maybe because I know like the iPhone X, but that's where we're at right now. I don't know the next thing we're gonna have is like the iPhone XI or something.
The iPhone
Yeah.
X wasn't selling very well, so I think they're discontinuing it. I do think though that once they release the iPhone 9, it'll have a screen very similar to the iPhone X.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't see Apple, once they've released that type of screen, not making it the standard for further generations.
All right. All right. Fair enough. Um, I think one thing I was thinking about that could be invented, not really like a gadget or something. I was thinking maybe like an app.
Mm-hmm.
Before I was trying to see like if I could use my iPhone as a webcam, and then I don't know. I was looking into like some free app, and then turns out it's like stopped working, and then like it started getting ads on it, which got pretty annoying. And I can understand about ads because that's what's needed to to keep apps free.
Yeah.
Or to keep websites free, or to keep games free.
Mm-hmm. Can't you? I mean, with stuff like Periscope and all that, can't you kind of use your phone as a webcam?
No, I mean that's like if you want to like live stream on Periscope. Let's say like using my phone like as a webcam. Like if I wanted to like live stream like from my computer and then use like OBS. Yeah, that's kind of like what I was doing before I bought my own webcam. And then that app stopped working, and then it started doing ads and all that stuff, and it just got pretty annoying. I had to like keep closing it and reopening it to make it work, and then I just gave up on that. But I feel like that would be pretty cool for people that want to live stream but they don't have like a professional webcam or something like that, or they don't have the money for it and they have a smartphone. I feel like that can help for that.
Probably, yeah. I mean, if you had it, there's probably competitors too. I think because of the access to stuff like Periscope and Twitch, that webcam streaming is probably going to start tapering off soon. Not for stuff like games, but for like lifestyle bloggers and all that, because there's a lot of them who are getting into it, and I feel that the iPhone is becoming, or just phones in general, are becoming a much more versatile
Yeah,
platform. Instead of like, because you have to carry your laptop everywhere if you want to use it. Your phone takes up half a pound in your pocket. You can take it anywhere instead of having a laptop that you have to sit at and it's almost like a fixed position.
yeah.
Let's see.
I'm thinking of other stuff I could think about.
I'm kind of tapered out on inventions at the moment.
I think I have another one I was thinking about. Besides that, with the iPhone, I was thinking of maybe like if somebody doesn't have like a professional microphone, like I do now, like maybe use like your iPhone as a source of like of your microphone. Like, yeah, if you already have your own webcam, you can use your iPhone as a microphone.
That came out recently. It's an app called Anchor. It's used for podcasting. Basically, you'd make a phone call and it records your conversation, and then it makes it a file to be exported as a podcast.
Oh, really? That's cool. That's cool. Okay.
I saw it somewhere, but I haven't used it or anything yet.
Yeah, I figured like if like audio files don't take like up a lot of space on like on a phone compared to an actual video.
They could take up a lot of space on phones. I mean, I don't know how much your podcast exports, but mine's like 50 or 60 megabytes an episode. So
I think mine's are a little bit more, yeah.
You'd have to have like 32, 64 gigabyte phone to constantly record podcasts on it.
Yeah, mine's only like 16 gig. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah. Let's see, what else do we have? We have your listeners' questions as well.
Oh yeah, we'll get into that in a bit.
Okay.
In a bit. I think one more last thing, like for like a light, like some sort of light source like you use, like you could just clip onto your laptop or something. Like like kind of like like ring lights.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something like maybe a little cheaper alternative to that, because I know like because that's really pretty expensive for a ring light. Or I don't know. I'm trying to think of like crazier inventions. Maybe an
I
automatic
mean,
door or something. I don't know.
a lot
For
of
your
that
own
stuff
for a
does
home.
exist. It's just expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna come down with time, but that's what it takes.
Yeah. Or like a tissue that like takes out the mucus from inside your nose like automatically, so you don't have to like blow your nose.
Oh, that would be uncomfortable.
Or I don't know, because I use up a bunch of tissue and I'm pretty sick, like because I have seasonal allergies.
I'm pretty tapped on
Yeah, I
gadgets
think
and
I am
inventions.
too. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into final thoughts. Actually,
All right.
for sure.
Okay, so let's start it. You can start it off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, our first topic ended up turning into Black Mirror, so which I like that better. Yeah. Yeah, if you guys haven't watched Black Mirror, definitely check that out. It's pretty interesting. Like each episode's pretty different. And
It's probably the best TV on TV.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, my sister introduced me to that show actually. She loves watching it as well.
The transhumanism conversation, that was pretty interesting, especially because of how relevant it's going to be.
Yeah, technology is just gonna keep expanding. You can't really stop that, Yeah, that's how like companies these days, they invent something and then eventually they're gonna start making money out of that stuff because people are gonna say, "Oh, I'm gonna need technology to do something," and then they get that thing, and then that becomes part of their life.
Eventually, with machine learning and all that, you're just going to have one product that can do everything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then the last part, inventions. Yeah, I don't know. There's like a lot of stuff out there that's already been invented, but then I don't know. We just gotta think deeper, as in for what we need that that technology can really help us do.
Well, there's a lot of stuff in biomedical and all that that's coming out this year that it's probably going to do a lot for that field, or how certain technologies like quantum computing are coming up around the bend that will help out a lot in science and technology in general.
Yeah. Just it's just a matter of what we see because it's gonna come up next throughout the years. All right. Yeah, that's pretty much all we've talked about for these three topics. Let's actually get into last episode's question. On episode 18's question, and which is how do you spend your Valentine's Day? And this time we got, let me see how many responses we have. I'm checking my Google Docs right now. 6 responses. So yeah, we got 6 responses for that question. So I'll start it off. Let's see. Our first response comes from 729, and he says, "This year I'll be visiting my old school and spending it with my significant other and some friends."
All right, I'm gonna take Kizzach here because I want to protect ObyMc's life right there, so he doesn't get bodied in the meme count.
But yeah, Valentine's Day is more with just your significant other. Spend it with your friends. Spend it with people who care about you, that you care about, and that's pretty much how it is. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Valentine's Day is when Kizzach and her significant other remind themselves how important their relationship is. Anything that can be put aside is a place for the devoted evening of doing something together. We like to have a special meal at home and avoid crazy busy restaurants in town. No gifts, just time. Then we get up super early and buy all the 50% off chocolate at Walmart.
Yeah, you just gotta wait till Valentine's Day ends, and then you get your discounts on the candy.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's how it is with because I work as a cashier at the grocery store, and they have that as well. They just cut it 50% off. You could just basically get any Valentine's Day candy for 50 cents because where I work at is technically a dollar store. Yeah, that's as cheap as you can get. And all the other merchandise, like anything else that's not candy, you just get it for like 25 cents. Yeah, and then you could just pretty much use that for next year's Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Same thing for like the day after Halloween or the day after Thanksgiving or the day after Christmas, like all those holidays.
You actually get a considerable amount of responses from your listeners.
Yep, indeed. I'm still gonna read Obby's anyways, because I'm just kidding. Nah, I don't.
Please protect him. Save his life, please. Don't hurt him like that.
No, I won't. Yeah, I won't. But yeah, thank you, ObyMc, for your response anyways. Thank you. I'll read the next one from ItzJumble, and he says, I spend my Valentine's Day looking forward to the next day, cause it's my birthday on the 15th. All right, well, happy belated birthday to you, Jumble. We hope you got something pretty good for your birthday.
Yeah, so do I. Pinch of Stardust has an interesting one here. For Valentine's Day, he spent his time with his family.
Sorry.
Ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, Pinch of Stardust is a she. Sorry.
She spent time with her family and invited her mother and brother out to breakfast at IHOP. They spent the afternoon marathoning the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's like 15 hours of movies. That's a solid investment. Wow, they did that in a day?
I mean, you could pretty much do anything in a day, I believe. Yeah. I mean, it's only 24 hours. like 1/3 of that is spent by sleeping.
There's some stuff you couldn't marathon in a day, like Doctor Who. I know it's one of the longest TV series of all time.
I remember my sister was binge watching Sherlock.
How did that go?
I have no idea. She was just on her laptop all day watching Sherlock.
No, that probably can't be comfortable. Watching stuff on a laptop never is.
I don't know. Benedict Cumberbatch is a pretty good actor. I could agree with that. Yeah. I'll read the last response. Alfie from Discord. He says, I spent the day before Valentine's not being able to sleep. Adrenaline was pumping because I had to ask my crush out. It was the most half and half feeling. The thought of rejection came across quite often, but I was quick to dismiss it. Finally, I went with at my crush's house at 12 p.m. and asked if she wanted to hang out with me and watch a movie or whatever. She said yes during the movie, and I had my first ever kiss. The best Valentine's Day, and the other I'll never forget. #bless.
Bless that child. He deserves it.
Yeah, moral bless. #. Yeah, that's pretty good, Alfie, that you're able to, that your crush said yes to you. Sometimes it could be difficult. Sometimes it could be difficult to ask out someone that you like. I know it was for me in high school and in public school. I don't think I asked anybody out because I'm not into I'm not really into like dances or like going to the prom. Because I know I ain't go to prom, I ain't go to grad night either. I just saved my money. I was playing League of Legends all day at the time.
All right, I think I'm going to introduce the question for this episode.
All right, go for it, Trace. What is episode 19's question?
Would you like to live in a transhuman world? In other words, would you live in a world where the human race evolves beyond its current physical and mental limitations?
Well, that's it for the question. You heard it here from Trace. Would you like to live in a transhuman world? Again, would you essentially live in a world where the human race evolves beyond its current physical and mental limitations? Send your response on Facebook or Twitter at Morals Podcast. You could also send an email at moraltruthbusiness@gmail.com, or you can send a comment on YouTube. Pretty much, I'm all over the place. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the responses. This is definitely a series of interesting topics we discussed today.
I agree. Do you mind if I plug some of my stuff here?
Yeah, for sure.
So you can get Opinion Overload on any podcast network. We've recently got on Spotify. We have it on iTunes, Pocket Cast. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find Opinion Overload. And you can find us on social media at Opinion OVR Load on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And all those links will be in the show notes. Yeah, feel free to check out Opinion Overload. Sounds like they have a lot of interesting stuff. I'll be sure to check them out as well. And with that said, that concludes episode 19 of Morals Podcast. I would like to thank Trace Thompson from the Opinion Overload Podcast for joining me today.
Thank you for hosting me on your show.
Anytime, man. Thanks for having these series of discussions with me. Like, I always wanted to talk about Black Mirror with somebody. Really love that show. All right, and until next time, this is More Truth, your host of Morals Podcast. Take care, have a great rest of your day, and let the morals be with you.